LGB. 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 LGB.
They say LGB everywhere. I go LGB. What it means, I don't know. LGB, whatever it is. LGB, Kamala, help me, please, please.
Alrighty then.
Thank you. LGB.
That's let's go, Brandon. Right?
LGB.
This means let's go, Brandon.
Go. LGB.
Sounds like let's go, Brandon. I guess.
LGB. All right, let's go, Brandon.
I am Cornholio.
Chant LGB. Right wing and left wing. LGB. Go, you know the thing. LGB. If you don't sing, step back. LGB. And you ain't black. LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
FJB. Let's go, Brandon.
I'm Joe Biden, and I forgot that.
Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Houston, Texas, this January 25th, 2024 at 11:02 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I'm going to be working smart, not hard in this episode, hopefully doing a Seth Keshel article, a Brian Cates article, and then finishing up with an original piece from Jason All, and that should be the whole show. Don't forget, this episode is brought to you by Angel Paste. Angel Paste, the best lotion the world has ever known. Guys, it's made of only food-grade plant oils, extracted from the plants using only cold, non-chemical means. Just press the plant until the oil comes out. It's a much more expensive process of harvesting the oils from the plants, but it's also one that gives you all of the good stuff and none of the bad stuff. We're seeing eczema, psoriasis, age spots, sunburns, all of these things being made much, much better by this simple, preservative-free, godly, wonderful lotion. Go to angelpaste.com, use promo code Shapiro to pry $1 from my grasping hands, and if you get 3 or more bottles, you get free shipping. Angel Paste, your skin will drink it up. Just check out the reviews on the Angel Paste website. Amazing, amazing stuff. All right, we're going to start by working smart, not hard. And we will start with my friend, Brian Cates. All right. Is neocon Nikki stuck on stupid? Next up is her home state of South Carolina, where polls currently have her trailing President Trump by around 30 points. By Brian Cates. Well, that's 2 GOP primaries, caucuses in our rearview mirror thus far into what is shaping up to be a truly historic 2024 election year. Last night, President Donald J. Trump won the New Hampshire primary by 11 points over his sole remaining challenger of any consequence, former South Carolina governor and his own former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley. In a convoluted concession speech acknowledging she'd just lost the New Hampshire primary to Trump, Haley vowed to continue fighting the establishment and refusing to step aside and allow a coronation of Donald Trump as the undisputed GOP candidate. Apparently, Haley is about to spend the next month stuck on stupid with the message that Donald Trump is now the establishment, and she's fighting the establishment by refusing to drop out of the race she clearly can't win. Ponder that for a second. Haley is now calling the guy the political elites of this country have relentlessly tried to undermine, sabotage, and outright destroy for going on 8 years now, the establishment. Is she stuck on stupid? Or is this just an act? Well, perhaps something is going on here. By staying in to New Hampshire, Haley just forced the surfacing of NGOs that are gaming the current primary system. Up until the voting actually started, Real Politics' aggregate score for Trump's lead among GOP voters in New Hampshire was 19.3 points. RealClearPolling.com, link in the article. 2024 New Hampshire Republican primary, Trump plus 11.3, 19.3, 22, 27, 22, 16, 18, 11. But the final results of the primary show Trump winning the state by only 11.3 points. So, were the polls wrong? Were they off by more than 8 points and Trump really didn't have the massive lead most pollsters gave him? Well, yes and no. The final results are accurate insofar as that goes, but there's a big caveat. The polls were likely also accurate, but we'll never know because of the thousands of Democrat voters that switched to the undeclared status specifically to cast a vote against GOP candidate Donald Trump by voting for Nikki Haley. Results showed that a whopping 70% of Haley voters in the New Hampshire primary were not registered Republicans. Ponder that for a minute. A massive amount of the 133,000 plus votes that Haley got in that primary on Tuesday night were from people who aren't even members of the Republican Party, but they're still being allowed to vote in GOP primaries and caucuses and help the Republican Party establishment pick the right candidates for the general election in November. From Breitbart, 70% of Nikki Haley voters not registered Republicans, CNN exit poll says. Anybody under the illusion that this massive movement of Democrat voters changing to undeclared status is organic, like it's just happening on its own? Well, it's not. And there is plenty of evidence that it is not. An internet researcher who goes by Chillum on Twitter posted a thread giving extensive detail into a company called Primary Pivot and the role it just played in Iowa and New Hampshire. From Chillum on Twitter, Primary Pivot has already moved over 3,500 Democrats to undeclared status in just under 1 week in New Hampshire, so that many can vote for Nikki Haley and stop Donald Trump. PrimaryPivot.org. Because of fanatical and well-funded and well-organized groups like Primary Pivot moving thousands of die-hard Democrats to undeclared status so they could vote in the New Hampshire primary on Tuesday night, it appears about 8 to 9 points was shaved off Trump's final margin of victory. Yes, Democrat NGOs are enthusiastically gaming the current system that either allows same-day registration to vote or allows undeclared persons to vote in GOP primaries and caucuses to skew the results as much as possible. Notice after what happened in Iowa and again just last night in New Hampshire, a whole lot of people are suddenly asking the right questions. Is this sending waves of undeclared Democrat voters into GOP primaries a new thing, or have they always been doing this? How long has this stuff been going on? Why has the current GOP leadership created a primary caucus system that lets massive numbers of people who aren't even in the party cast votes to determine GOP candidates for office? How long have many GOP primary down ballot races for state and local offices been influenced by stealth Democrat voters crossing over to help the right uniparty candidates get on the November general election ballot? Given what everybody can now clearly see is going on, how Dem NGOs like Primary Pivot are enthusiastically gaming the current system to dramatically skew the voting results. Is the current GOP party leadership going to allow this kind of thing in the future? If the current GOP party leadership refuses to take any action at all now that this gaming of the current primary caucus system is being laid bare for all to see, what would that tell us? While this Democrat activist group's chicanery in New Hampshire was able to take what should have been a 19-plus point blowout for Trump and carve off about 8 points from Trump's final margin, Primary Pivot and similar NGOs have a far more daunting task awaiting them, Haley's sweet home state of South Carolina. And that's because Haley isn't running behind Trump by only 19 points in the polls. She's trailing him by around 30 points. I don't think there are that many fanatical Democrats willing to undertake an effort to switch their party status to undeclared or whatever in order to try to stop Trump by voting for Haley in the South Carolina GOP presidential primary. At most, they might be able to shave off about 10 to 12 points of Trump's lead, but Haley would still lose by double digits even so. Stop for just a minute and ponder just how freaking weird and strange this current primary season has gotten in such an awful hurry. We're only 2 races in, and Trump's lone remaining challenger is having to count on massive numbers of Democrats gaming the current GOP primary system just to hide and obscure how large Trump's popular support really is. South Carolina isn't actually the next state in which delegates are up for grabs. That's Nevada, February 8th, but because of a truly weird situation where both a caucus and a primary are being held on different dates, Trump is running unopposed in the caucus, and Haley is running in the primary only. But it's the caucus that will award Nevada's 26 delegates, and so because Trump is running unopposed, he already has those nailed down. South Carolina has 50 delegates, and it's becoming clear that Haley wants to use primary pivot shenanigans to grab as many of those 50 as she can for herself. I suppose we should actually thank Haley and her big pockets Democrat donors for doing this, for refusing to drop out after that humiliating Iowa butt walloping and soldiering on to the double-digit New Hampshire defeat, and now obstinately vowing to plow ahead in South Carolina. If Haley and the team behind her weren't doing this, a massive spotlight would not have been suddenly lit up and held on Primary Pivot and other nefarious NGOs out there who are desperately trying to influence GOP primaries, and people are rightly starting to wonder if these NGOs are doing this stuff with the tacit approval and blessing of the GOP party establishment. Now that everybody can clearly see what's been going on, pressure can be brought to bear on the Republican Party leadership, who are all establishment through and through, into changing their easily corrupted primary system to make it tamper-proof. All right, that is the latest from Brian Cates. Thank you, Brian, for being such a wonderful source of material for my show. And thank you, by the way, you've sold quite a few bottles of Angel Paste from me putting a little ad in those recordings, so that kicks ass. Speaking of work smart, not hard, I will now be presenting my friend Seth Keshel, whose audio I'm doing these days, and that sure is fun. And we'll go ahead and get started with that right now. Reader advisory. Many of you aren't going to like what you read here in this space. I, more than many other opinionated folks in the greater commentariat, tend not to see the world in easily discernible black and white, but rather in many shades that form various factions, coalitions, and alliances that yield varying degrees of efficacy. As such, I know people on both sides of the recent split, some of whom will agree with what I'm about to put downrange, and others who will continue to miss the forest for the trees, or, in other words, fail to detect the larger problem due to a greater focus on minutia. If you thought Donald Trump's double-digit victory over a uniparty candidate who relied on non-Republican votes in a watered-down New Hampshire primary would be the biggest political news item of the week, you turned out to be wrong. I am numbered in this group, and I'd be willing to bet you, the reader, are too. When Garrett Lewis suggested on Monday that he was going to blow the doors off the mystery of who wanted Kari Lake out of politics, a scheme unveiled last March at CPAC, both wonderment and skepticism appeared. I met Kari Lake for the first time at a Republican breakfast in Ahwatukee, Arizona in 2021. When I keynoted an event in Payson, Arizona in May 2022, I bumped into her again, and we swapped contact info. Since then, I've come to know her well, and can attest to all reading this posting that she is an ardent student of all things political, a quick study on elections, and having been ripped off in the grandest fashion possible, has a bone to pick with those who are destroying the free and fair voice of the people. I have to say this because I know far too many people who can't stand her, and given that they do not know her level of sincerity to get to the bottom of election corruption, they likely despise her out of envy and bitterness. This dynamic is not much different than when Donald Trump, now considered the Republican standard-bearer, arrived on the political scene in 2015. Many Republican lifers who have come to accept America First as the future of the Republican Party hated him then because he threatened to upset an order that had done nothing meaningful since the 1980s and was barely capable of carrying 200 electoral votes, having lost connection to America's working class and failed to fix any of the issues facing the modern nation. Whether in sports or government, grizzled and often outdated veterans loathe the upstart rookies who get all the attention. This resentment has gone so far that opponents of Lake within the Republican Party mimic the worst of Ron DeSantis' online influencers' criticism of Trump by insisting that her election loss was legitimate and therefore a renouncement of her viability as a candidate for any future office. If you'd like to be squared away on how unintelligent one must be to believe Trump or Lake legitimately lost Arizona in 2020 and 2022 respectively, please click here, link in the article. Rather than speak truth about how distorted Arizona's elections have become, they resort to simply trying to outvote a system designed to control exactly who is allowed at the helm of power. Lake's willingness to advance forward to reveal the entire machinery of the Maricopa election circus in court, only unsuccessful on account of judicial corruption, has given freedom-minded people much needed knowledge, and even then, her haters affirm judicial corruption because they have it out for her. I have not met Mr. DeWitt, the former Arizona GOP chair, personally, although I have a good working relationship with many people close to him, including many up in arms about the current debacle, shredding what remains of the Arizona Republican Party. The balance of this article is not about the ethics of privately recording audio, nor is it about who likes Trump the most and who wants to win elections and in which manner they should be won. It is a shot across the bow at those who think we can make it to the other side of this fourth turning by doing the same things we have tried and failed repeatedly by doing. Nearly all Republican minds will affirm massive corruption in politics is a real thing and trickles down not only from corruption in our federal government, but thanks to the rapid shrinking of the world, also global interests. Because so many Republican lifers have allowed Lake hate and the erroneous belief that America First populism, which yielded over 11 million net new Trump votes and a piercing of the Democrat grip on minority voters of all races and ethnicities, is costing us easy Republican seats and electoral votes to persist, they neglect to stand with awe-struck respect that someone finally resisted a bona fide offer of personal enrichment, proving that she is not only who she claimed to be when she walked away from a life of ease, guaranteed promotion and fame, but that she believes her cause is real and not made up of miscellaneous soundbites, clips, and campaign taglines. I do not claim to know why the recording was held for 10 months or more, or why it was released ahead of the critical Arizona GOP leadership summit this weekend, which will be attended by Trump himself. That does not matter, because nearly everyone on both sides of this ordeal appears to be missing what truly matters. Those dug in for Lake are going after the wrong guy, DeWitt. Those dug in for DeWitt stand by their Lake hate, and in doing so, excuse the very force that is destroying our political world and our reason to pursue and pass down the cause of self-government, which was fought, bled, and died for by those who left the comforts of colonial living behind to bring about what became the freest and greatest society mankind has ever known, with a constitution that has endured for over 230 years. For reference, here is a post from X with the 10-minute audio release. Link in the article. Near the end of the audio, at the 9:30 mark, this exchange occurs. Lake, I think you should go public with this and then say, hey, DeWitt, no, 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 no. Then I turn my key in my car and boom. The recording concludes with Lake being asked for a counter and her insistence that she can't be bought. Isn't that what people have always wanted, for their elected or appointed officials to not be bought off and corrupted? We have come full circle in our idiocy when outrage over this audio surfacing prevails over the substance of what is being said. This is certainly not DeWitt's idea, and that can be discerned through the recording and through the unease in which he approaches Lake with this idea that she should sit out the 2024 campaign cycle because the folks back east have a new, controllable, political robot in mind to fill the open Senate seat once held by feckless Republican weakling Jeff Flake. What should have happened here is exactly what was suggested at the end of the call, that both Lake and DeWitt blow the lid off what the true problem in politics is. Outside influences control state politics through bribery, compromise, and coercion. Our officials know the right things to do, and they understand how the law is supposed to be applied. They are not unintelligent human beings who continue to make errors that fail to recognize national sovereignty, basic rights, or the need for a nation to create policy that benefits our own economies, not that of the rest of the world. Why don't Democrats understand we can't let everyone in? They do. Why don't Republicans realize we can't cripple manufacturing with new trade deals? They do. They understand thoroughly we should not waste the lives of our young service members in conflicts of choice waged across the world's great shitholes, my father's phrase. But they cannot execute righteous and just policy because human ambition, the desire to find worth in perceived power and influence of any kind, has surpassed the will to govern justly. These officials are ensnared and compromised and ultimately fear one sound. Boom. When, in the course of human events, it has come to pass that our officials fear imminent death for noncompliance, we have lost the experiment for freedom. What you are missing here is not which side of the factional divide you should rush to bunker down within, but that outsiders, with all of the wealth and power in America, are disenfranchising Americans in all 50 states and remaining territories by throwing around the confiscated wealth of the citizenry and instilling within the powerful the belief that one misstep away from the agenda of global government may be the last step taken. The people deserve answers, and much deeper answers than those that would get to the bottom of factional divides. We need names. All right, that is my friend Seth Keshel. What a luminous column that was. Absolutely brilliant. We have absolutely got to get to the bottom of this, what their names are, who they are, where they live. There are people who have overthrown our government. Where are they? What are their names? Where do they live? Let's confiscate their money. Let's confiscate their bank accounts and their property. These people who are jumping out there and saying, hey, Carrie Lake, we need you to not run. And how many corporations can we give you, put you on the payroll of to make? Where are these people? Jeff DeWitt. This is worth dying for, guys. All right. So I finished today's show, with my friend Jason All, who once in a while puts out something for me to read. Let's begin. Retribution from Time. Trump promised retribution. He's not so sure that's what Iowa voters want. At the beginning of his 2024 campaign, Donald Trump promised to avenge his enemies during a second term, telling a gathering of conservative activists, "I am your retribution." But in the days leading up to the Iowa caucuses, the former president now says he might be a little too busy for vendettas. Quote, "We're going to make this country so successful again," he told a Fox News town hall in Des Moines. "I'm not going to have time for retribution." The reversal reveals a core tension for the former president's bid to reclaim the White House. On the one hand, vengeance has been his most potent rallying cry. Trump's criminal prosecutions have only galvanized the MAGA faithful and helped him become the far and away frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination. With each indictment, he raised millions of dollars and steamed further ahead in the polls. On the other hand, his authoritarian pledge to punish political adversaries is what he needs to modulate if he is to attract moderate voters in swing states. No campaign is about a single strategy, and Trump's will necessarily entail making two contradictory pitches at once. By crafting a campaign theme of comeuppance, he's turned his legal woes into a political advantage, mobilizing his most committed followers. That's sure to be central in his rhetoric over the coming year, when he's likely to spend more time in a courtroom than on the campaign trail. But to win over average Americans who are worried he'll transform the nation into an autocracy, he's suggesting that he doesn't quite mean what he says. Trump's opponents recognize the pull of Trump's call for retribution, especially as he's facing 91 felony indictments and the possibility of decades in prison. Quote, "I think they really feel government's been weaponized against him," says Bob Vander Plaats, the influential Iowa evangelical leader who endorsed DeSantis. If it's weaponized against him, they believe it will be weaponized against them. The popular right-wing radio host Steve Deace says when callers complain about him attacking DeSantis, they usually make the same point. They want the populist rabble-rouser, the fighter who will pulverize the Washington elites they feel have waged war on their way of life. Quote, "That's why Trump wants to appear in all those courtrooms," says Deace. "That's his campaign. They're persecuting me because they hate you. I'm your conduit. I'm your way to get back at them." That's his most powerful message. Some Trump supporters want him to get even with enemies, but it depends on the target. Quote, "I want him to take retribution on China, Ukraine, North Korea, and Iran," says Gary Leffler, who was sporting a white Trump caucus captain hat at the Fox News town hall. "You're doggone right I do." But when asked if he wants Trump to punish his domestic foes, the 62-year-old from West Des Moines demurred. Quote, "A lot of things get said in the heat of the campaign," he says. The competition between Trump and his rivals is, at its core, about whether the party wants to litigate the past or to turn the page to a new era in Republican politics. It's a question that DeSantis' supporters recognize may be answered soon. If he doesn't win here, Deace says, it's because the people aren't ready to move on. For his part, Trump seems only marginally committed to moderating his tone. One day ahead of the Iowa caucuses, Trump rallied America First diehards through a rally in Indianola, Iowa. Outside, it was 12 degrees below zero. In an hour and 40-minute speech, he resorted to the kind of incendiary rhetoric that has defined his political persona, vowing to close the borders on day one and enact the largest deportation program in American history. He called the U.S. Capitol a rat-infested, graffiti-infested shithole and told his supporters to brave the weather Monday evening, which is expected to be the coldest night in Iowa caucus history. He didn't give his enemies a pass. At one point, Trump took aim at the New York judge presiding over a $370 million civil fraud case against him. "I am going to that funeral," Trump said to rapturous applause. "This judge, whatever the hell he wants to do, let him do it. We're going to that funeral." First, it's important to note the source of that article above, Time magazine. So it is not really surprising to see them attack Trump with mischaracterizations of things like closing the border as incendiary rhetoric or suggesting that average Americans, quote, are worried he'll transform the nation into an autocracy. But the worst part is the way they have redefined retribution as revenge. Sure, revenge is a synonym for retribution, but let's look at the actual definition of retribution. From dictionary.cambridge.org, deserved and severe punishment. They fled because they feared retribution for the genocide. She was asked whether a civilian government should seek retribution against military officers involved in human rights abuses. Many saw her death as divine retribution, punishment by God for her crimes. Let's go back to Trump's actual statement. All right, this is from C-SPAN. I am your justice. I am your retribution. He then vows to totally obliterate the so-called deep state. All right. And then, as Ricardo Bozzi said long ago,
we must win this war with such moral authority that we are able to win the peace that follows. Finally, when all is done, the guilty will be punished. We will deal with the traitors in a lawful manner, which after the reprehensible, coordinated malfeasance and violence that they have visited upon us, that will be more than they deserve. And we will do this because we, the common people of Australia, are and have always been so much more than the elites. We are better than they are. We have not and we will not sacrifice our decency and our humanity to win this war as they have done. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to enter a period of history without precedent, a war for the world. And we, you and I, are on the front line. Be calm, be united, be brave, and be good. And finally, remember that we fight, as G.K. Chesterton wrote, not because we hate what is in front of us, but because we love what is behind us. Thank you.
but we must take into account what brought them to their crimes. Let's go all the way back to Q drop number 10 of October 29th, 2017. Remember, the FBI and MI have an open investigation into the CF. Why did Comey drop this? Who was the FBI director during the Haiti crisis? How many kids disappeared? How much money sent to CF under disguise of H relief went to H? What countries donated big money to CF and why? How much was owed by accepting? When she lost, how would this be repaid? What did Obama do with cash just prior to leaving office? Repayment to those who donated for favors/access? Dig. Again, good people were forced into bed with this evil under personal and family threats. Could you live with yourself helping to cover up such evil, despicable acts if given a safe way out? These people worship Satan. Some openly show it.
Are you going to answer that?
It's not mine.
Hello, Matt.
Sorry, who is this?
There is a bomb under your seat. If you... Do I have your attention?
Did I do something to you?
You sound so guilty.
What do you want?
Drive to this location.
Honey, something's happened. There's a man who has put a bomb in the car. Under our seats, there are pressure triggers. We can't get out. The car will explode. We're here.
Listen very carefully, or I kill you. Open the glove box. Shoot him.
Why are you doing this?
What have I ever done to you?
His life or yours.
Matt, I'm your best friend.
You're a murderer now, Matt.
You think I'm the bomber?
Well, I guess you've had a tough day. I know that you lost a lot of money for your clients who invested in your fund. A lot of people are worried about you. You got everybody's attention, Matt.
He is still out there. If you can find him, I will.
I'm in control here.
No, you're not. You hurt my daughter, you son of a bitch. I will kill you. What's it gonna be?
Drive.
It's easy for us to simply condemn them for their transgressions, but we must be better than that. We must be prepared to forgive. From the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, chapter 12, verses 14 through 21, King James Version. Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Next time, hopefully, we'll get to the Star Wars-themed compilation, where we will more fully explore why anyone would ever choose to turn to the dark side. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Visions you have.
They're of pain, suffering, death.
It was a dream.
Get violent tonight.
Like the ones I used to have about my mother.
Right. You're gonna be. It's an eye for an eye, and I don't know if I want you to fight.
Someone.
Want you to fight.
Close
I'm
to you.
losing my mind.
Yes.
Don't leave me behind.
I won't let this one become real. I won't let these visions come true, Master Yoda.
Are you an angel? What? An angel. They're the most beautiful creatures in the universe.
From the moment I met you, not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you.
I made this for you, so you'd remember me.
I don't need this to remember you by.
The thought of not being with you, I can't breathe.
I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back.
I love you, Annie.
I love you too.
All right, and that is the latest from the brilliant Jason All. Thank you so much, Jason, for your submissions. It's just nice to have such an unbelievably brilliant audience. All right, so I want to get to a new Substack. I don't know if it's new, but I have just recently discovered it, and it is called Sigma Game. And I'm pretty sure it's just exclusively Vox Day, but I could be wrong. There might be other contributors to it. But I want to get to a piece entitled The Lament of the Gamma. So hold for processing. Find it first. Okay, where did I put it? There it is. All right. Check this out. This is entitled The Lament of the Gamma. And I'm assuming it's Vox Day, but check it out. This is from sigmagame.substack.com. The Lament of the Gamma, a disturbingly illustrative example of how gammas handle rejection. Ode to that signed book by him who chose to block me. Oh, that novel on my shelf by him who chose to block me, who signed it, or to myself in belief that it would rock me, who called me friend and colleague then in the hopes that I'd write some praise, with fine excerptable blurb that might his royalties raise. But alas, alack, that book of Heinleinian flavor, with ray gun blasts I ne'er took an afternoon to savor, my author pal got online with Hugo baiting rancor, or books both poor and sublime, with allies like a canker. My friend whose best wishes lie beneath his byline banner, unpersoned old humble I in well-worn Facebook manner. Now, that novel on my shelf by he who was ejected, my reminders of my base self whose politics rejected, do I keep it there to read or prize as a memento? Do I pluck it like a weed and sell it for my rento? Do I say that madness reigns in crusades so demented? Do I satisfy with words that hurt feelings were vented? I don't know. And yet that book still sits still in my library, teasing me with every look, idle, sad, contrary. In my garden of friends' works I cannot bear to weed it, even as it cruelly lurks, where I will never read it. That's an actual poem of sorts, written by a gamma in response to being blocked on social media. Even as doggerel, it is execrable in the extreme. If your response to reading that is, I wonder how many cringeworthy poems that loser has written to various miladies, then you've grasped the concept of gamma correctly. sigmagame.substack.com. Let me just pull another one more. There's one called, you know what I'll do? I'm going to read, I don't think it's too long. It's not that long. Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the sociosexual hierarchy, I'm going to read to you Vox Day's really, really small, short summary, so you'll understand what we're talking about. So this is from, again, sigmagame.substack.com, the sociosexual hierarchy, the original definitions of the SSH, sociosexual hierarchy, profiles. Alpha. Alpha is the tall, good-looking guy who is the center of both male and female attention. The classic star of the football team who's dating the prettiest cheerleader, the successful business executive with the beautiful, stylish, blonde, size 0 wife. All the women are attracted to him while all the men want to be him, or at least be his friend. At a social gathering like a party, he's usually the loud, charismatic guy telling self-flattering stories to a group of top-tier women who are listening with interest. However, alphas are only interested in women to the extent that they exist for the alpha's gratification, physical and psychological. They are actually more concerned with their overall group status. Bravo, also known as beta. Bravos are the good-looking guys who aren't as uniformly attractive or socially dominant as the alpha, but are nevertheless confident, attractive to women, and do well with women. At the party, they're the loud guy's friends who showed up with the alcohol and who are flirting with the tier 1 women and cheerfully pairing up with the tier 2 women. Bravos tend to genuinely like women and view them in a somewhat optimistic manner, but they don't have a lot of illusions about them either. Bravos tend to be happy, secure in themselves, and are up for anything their alpha wants to do. When they marry, it is not infrequently to a woman who was one of the alpha's former girlfriends. Delta. The normal guy. Deltas are the great majority of men. They can't attract the most attractive women, so they usually aim for the second-tier women with very limited success and stubbornly resist paying attention to all of the third-tier women who are comfortably in their league. This is ironic, because deltas would almost always be happier with their closest female equivalents. When a delta does manage to land a second-tier woman, he is constantly afraid that she will lose interest in him and will, not infrequently, drive her to the very loss of interest he fears by his non-stop dancing of attendance upon her. In a social setting, the deltas are the men clustered together in groups, each of them making an occasional foray towards various small gaggles of women before beating a hasty retreat when direct eye contact and engaged responses are not forthcoming. Deltas tend to put the female sex on pedestals and have overly optimistic expectations of them. If a man rhapsodizes about his better half or is an inveterate white knight, he is almost certainly a delta. Deltas like women, but find them mysterious, confusing, and are sometimes secretly a little afraid of them. Gamma. The introspective, the unusual, the unattractive, and all too often the bitter. Gammas are often intelligent, usually unsuccessful with women, and not uncommonly all but invisible to them. The gamma alternates between placing women on pedestals and hating the entire sex. This mostly depends upon whether an attractive woman happened to notice his existence or not that day. Too introspective for their own good, gammas are the men who obsess over individual women for extended periods of time and supply the ranks of stalkers, psycho-jealous ex-boyfriends, and the authors of excruciatingly romantic, rhyming doggerel. In the unlikely event they are at the party, they are probably in the corner, muttering darkly about the behavior of everyone else there, sometimes to themselves. Gammas tend to have a worship/hate relationship with women, the current direction of which is directly tied to their present situation. However, they are sexual rejects, not social rejects. Omega. The truly unfortunate. Omegas are the social losers who were never in the game, sometimes creepy, sometimes damaged, often clueless, and always undesirable. They're not at the party. It would never have crossed anyone's mind to invite them in the first place. Omegas are either totally indifferent to women or hate them with a borderline homicidal fury. Sigma. The outsider who doesn't play the social game and managed to win at it anyhow. The Sigma is hated by alphas because Sigmas are the only men who don't accept or at least acknowledge, however grudgingly, their social dominance. Everyone else is vaguely confused by them. In a social situation, the Sigma is the man who stops in briefly to say hello to a few friends, accompanied by a tier 1 girl that no one has ever seen before. Sigmas like women, but tend to be contemptuous of them. They are usually considered to be strange but cool. Gammas often like to think they are Sigmas, failing to understand that Sigmas are not social rejects. They are at the top of the social hierarchy, despite their refusal to play by its rules. Lambda. Those men who have quite literally no interest in conventional male-female sexual relations. They clearly have their own hierarchy of sorts, but I can't say that I know much about it other than it appears to somehow involve youth, free weights, and mustaches. Now, it is important to keep in mind that it serves absolutely no purpose to identify yourself in some manner that you think is better or higher up the hierarchy. No one cares what you think you are. And your opinion about your place in the social hierarchy is probably the opinion that matters least. There is no good or bad here. There is only what happens to be observable in social interaction. Consider. Alphas seemingly rule the roost, and yet they live in a world of constant conflict and status testing. Sigmas usually acquired their outsider status the hard way. One seldom becomes immune to the social hierarchy by virtue of mass popularity in one's childhood. Bravos, okay. Bravos actually have it pretty good. But the important thing to keep in mind is that you can't improve your chances of success in the social game if you begin by attempting to deceive yourself as to where you stand vis-a-vis everyone else around you. That is sigmagame.substack.com. Vox Day, brilliant guy. You can check him out at voxday.net. That's sigmagame.substack.com. Give that a subscribe, and if you can, really go through it. It's some brilliant stuff. He also, I'm going to probably cover this sometime soon. He goes into women and the way they compete with each other and how friggin' psycho they can be in tearing each other down. It's quite fascinating stuff. All right, so I think that's the show for today. Don't forget, this show brought to you by Angel Paste. Use promo code Shapiro to pry $1 from my grasping hands. Go to angelpaste.com where you can check out the reviews. We're seeing amazing results with this stuff. Just a dime's worth on my hand, right under my face. My gosh, really saves your skin. Consists only of food-grade plant oils extracted from those plants using only cold, non-chemical means. Angel Paste, your skin will drink it up. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I was able to get through this show with reasonable lack of stopping and starting, so I'm kind of glad about that. And let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.